Vinny Vesey. It's my pleasure to be the master of ceremonies for the 2013 induction dinner for the Peekskill High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Give yourselves a big round of applause for being here. This evening there are two teams that will be honored for their great success on the actually on the basketball court, two different basketball teams, and 5 individuals who will be celebrated for their not only their success as athletes, but for the way that they conducted themselves while in Peekskill High School as an athlete, where they brought great honor to our school, to our community, and to themselves. So we are here to celebrate the success of the boys basketball team from 1933 and 1934. To celebrate James Starr Denon from the class of 1933. From the class of 1955, Joe Walsh. The Irish always get so loud. I don't know how that happens. From the class of 58, Tony Franich. From the class of 1973, Mr. Greg Terrone. Was that a standing ovation you gave Greg Turrone there, Billy? It was, huh? All right. You got one supporter here, Greg. From the class of 1985, Carol Olsen Lively. Carol. There you go, another Irishman, I tell you. And the boys basketball team from 1967, 1968. To give our welcome here this evening, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the athletic director of the Peekskill school system, who's a great friend and a tremendous successful person in his own right, a member of the New York State Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame, Louis Panzanero. Lou.
Thanks, Vin. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our 4th annual Athletic Hall of Fame dinner ceremony. Before I say anything, I would like to have those individuals that Vinny just mentioned please stand. Greg Turrone, Carol Olsen Lively, Tony Franich, and Dr. Walsh, Dr. Joseph Walsh. So you can all get to see who they are and honor them. That's why we're here tonight, guys. These are the individuals that we are celebrating. Starr Denon is being inducted posthumously. He was a member of the 1933 class of Peekskill High School, and his nephew, Mike Denon, is representing him here tonight. Mike is standing over there. Thank you, Michael. As you can imagine, there's not too many members of the 33-34 basketball team here tonight, but the one of them that is sitting over there by that Lou Panzanero Sr. And we have a representative of John Kokosha. Where's Ellie? Ellie and her right here. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Oh, and your brother, Joe? Ron. Okay. Thank you, Ron. And there's another team that's trying to say that they're the best team ever in the history. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But can those members of the 67-68 basketball team stand up for a minute so we can just take a look at you? Thank you, fellas. Well, this group spans 50 years from 33 through 85, and it's quite a group of athletes. I'm going to go in, and people are going to go into the details later on, but I do just want to mention that we have a wrestler who in 4 years as a varsity wrestler, over 100 matches, was never pinned. I think that's quite an accomplishment. We have a swimmer that's being inducted who swam just about every stroke there is and set many of the records at the high school. And I forgot to mention, that wrestler was Greg Turrone. The swimmer is Olsen Lively. We have Dr. Joseph Walsh, Joe Walsh, as I knew him, who used to give me his used tennis balls. I love that guy. He had a string of 17 straight victories as the #1 player. What a great career he's had, but he certainly set himself apart as a schoolboy tennis player, and we're happy he could come all the way from Minnesota to be here with us tonight. Thank you, Dr. Walsh. And one guy that I looked up to as a kid and respected so much for lots of reasons, but he was one heck of a baseball player, basketball player, and that's Tony Franich, and you're going to hear about him. And, of course, Mike is going to talk about his uncle, Starr, who was just an all-around ball player, many different sports. I think he was a 4-sport player. So we'll hear more about that later. You know, since the opening of Peekskill High School in 1929, there's been over 10,000 graduates, all having a chance to be student athletes. We have 79 members of the Hall of Fame. That's less than 1%. So this is quite an honor to be inducted into the Peekskill High School Hall of Fame. You know, and these athletes, it's more than just being a special athlete. It's the character. It's the selflessness. It's the discipline, the sacrifice that they make to be part of a team. And it's all of these characteristics, and I'm sure many other attributes, that allows them to rise to the level that they have to be inducted into this Hall of Fame here tonight. So the athletic part is important, but these are good people as well, and we really appreciate that in them. If you were ever present, and I'm sure many of you were, especially the ones sitting with the people that you are here for tonight, this has to generate some great memories of these individual performances and of these team performances. And we feel such great pride in remembering what they have accomplished and what they have meant to Peekskill High School and the Red Devil spirit and to the community. And it's that pride that I feel. This is one of my favorite nights of the year, to hear the stories about these great individuals. And if you weren't a Peekskill High School graduate, I'm sure it must generate some thoughts and memories of the great athletes and teams of your alma mater. And you know, that spirit that is generated goes a long way in bringing people, communities, and schools together. And we celebrate them, and we're very thankful to have you all here tonight, and we're going to have a great night. So sit back and enjoy it. Thank you. One more thing, and I probably should have done this before I went into it. I have to introduce my committee. Without this committee, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight, because I certainly could not have ever pulled this off. You know, we had some real drivers in this, and that committee is Janine DeChristopher, her husband Dixie DeChristopher, Ann Brady, John Brophy. That may be why his team is sitting out there right now. Frank Master Nunzio. And two other members, John Pappas and Spanky McLennan, couldn't be here. But I got a great group of people to work with, and I appreciate it. I just want to say one more thing before we return it to Vinny, is I just want Timmy Strang. Where's Timmy? Can you stand up for a second? Last year, we inducted his team into the Hall of Fame, and he went on a Caribbean cruise. I don't know how you could make that choice. But, Tim, belated congratulations for being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And now, our former mayor and master of ceremonies, Vincent Vessig.
That's all right. Thank you, Lou. Just struck and Louis brought up last year. Last year we were here and we were celebrating the extraordinary basketball prowess of Elton Brand. And this year we're celebrating the extraordinary basketball prowess of John Brophy. What a difference a year makes, huh? Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. I do want to introduce to you a gentleman to just say a few words, the president of the Peekskill School District Board of Education, Mr. Doug Glickert. Doug?
Well, it is a pleasure and it is an honor to represent Peekskill School District here tonight. It is, we're very, very grateful and thankful for these inductees tonight and for the role model that they are showing the students that we have in our schools even today. The service that they show all the time in our community with their own kids as well as kids in our community, with umpiring, you name it. They're very, very involved. And it just goes to show you, what good school districts with good athletic programs can do. Starting from a young age, we work together with the Parks and Rec Department. We're very grateful for what the mayor, Mayor Forster, and the previous mayors have set as a foundation in our town, our city, as well as the Little League coaches and all the programs that start at a young age. And like Lou said earlier, it's about character. It's about developing these kids for the future. And athletics, you're building teamwork, you're building perseverance, working together, and it really helps in all areas of life. So whether you play professional football or basketball, or if you just are involved with your community or your job, it makes a difference, and it makes a difference in kids' lives. And I'm honored to be here. And to open tonight, we're just going to, thank God for His blessings. So let's pray. Dear Father, we just thank you so much for tonight. We thank you for the men and women that we can honor tonight, for their contributions, for their athleticism, for their accomplishments that they have made, Lord, on an individual level and on a team level, but more importantly, Lord, on a community level, where they can really be examples and lights to this community. Lord, our kids need examples. So we're thankful that you are part of this night. We ask, Lord, that you'll just bless everything that goes on tonight. Give each one a special blessing, Lord, and we thank you for this food and for the people that have prepared it. And we just ask you, Lord, for just a great night of support for all the things that are going on in people's lives and in our schools. In your name, amen.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, want to acknowledge a few folks that are here, one of which is a kid who grew up in Peekskill, since moved on to Down County and White Plains area, and he's a county legislator representing White Plains and a few other communities around there. District 5, is it, Bill? Pretty good. Oh, my mind's still good. Okay. Say hello to Bill Ryan, okay? Now we get closer to home. Is John still here? I know John Testa, our county legislator, was feeling a little under the weather. You still here, John, or not? Okay, that had nothing to do. He didn't taste any of the food or anything. He's okay. But John Testa was here, and he left some proclamations for all of our recipients here this evening. Let's have a round of applause for John. And I know the next person is still here, so I'll ask her to come on up and say a few words, and she's got proclamations for all the recipients as well. Peekskill's Mayor, Mary Foster.
Well, I'll let the proclamations be handed out with the proclamations from the county and the plaques that the Athletic Hall of Fame will be distributing. But I just wanted to share a couple of words. One, it is wonderful to see teams come back from the 30s, individual players from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. To me, that means that Peekskill means a lot to you. To travel from parts unknown to come be here to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is important for the city. And I want to thank you for the travels you've made. And a personal thank you, because I chuckled when I saw the name, Joe Walsh. The private joke is we bought Joe Walsh's house. And so where I live is where Joe grew up, behind the tennis courts, behind Depew Park. And I would hear for years from my husband what a wonderful tennis player Joe Walsh was. And so it is, I've met Joe once, and it is wonderful to see Joe again, and thank you for traveling from Minnesota to be here. It really touches our hearts for people who've made that trip. Yes, yes. I will tell you that we have had people come visit the house on various occasions, relatives and others who, wanted to kind of travel through to see what changes we've made, et cetera. But you're welcome to come on up. It is a great place to live. And I will say that we've had city inspectors traveling through our property as well as other people unknown. And so the house has made photographs of late, which is another inside joke. But I do want to thank the representatives from 1933 and 34. One person has made it here, right, Benny? Yep. From the basketball team. And in the back of listening, where I'm sitting, as the names were being announced, you could hear discussions at other tables debating who was the best of the swimmers and the best of the basketball teams and the best of the best. I'm right. It's like, and so when you sit there and you listen, how athletics and how over many decades we still want to debate who is the best of the best. It's great. It means people have a lot of pride in Peekskill, and when you're born here and you're raised here, Peekskill is in your blood. And so thank you to the high school and the Athletic Hall of Fame and Lou Panzanero for doing this every year. I think it's so important for the city. And thank you all for who come out and support it, because it's really just great. And the proclamations are all up here.
Joe, don't worry. Mary will lock the dogs away, so you'll be able to get onto the property without any problems. All right? Okay, a couple of quick announcements. We have a 50-50 going on tonight. So if you have not already purchased your 50-50 tickets, there'll be some folks going around. Stand up and show them that. There you go. All right? They'll be going around trying to shake you down for some 50-50 tickets. And we also have a silent auction right over here on the table where Alan is. You'll see a couple of footballs, one of which is signed by Billy Thomas, another which is signed by Trey Johnson. Oh, I guess they're signed by Billy and Trey, right? And Trey Johnson, and a basketball signed by Elton Brand and John Brophy. So you'll be all set there. With that, the staff here at the Colonial Terrace will be showing you to the buffet, so when your table gets called, please enjoy. We'll be back with you in a little while with the inductees. Our objective here now is twofold. First and foremost is to make sure that all of the recipients this evening, all of the inductees into the Peekskill High School Athletic Hall of Fame, are given their just due, and everybody appreciates everything that they have done while they were in Peekskill High School. And the second thing is to get this thing done before the Obamacare website gets up and running. So I know that gives us a pretty big window, but at this time, we are going to celebrate the 1933-34 boys basketball team, and to do that is, gentlemen you met before, our athletic director, Louis Panzanero. Lou.
Thank you, Vinny. Well, they gave us 5 minutes each to present this. And 3 minutes, he's saying now. That is tough, because these basketball teams were two phenomenal basketball teams. I'm going to take them one at a time. I'm going to talk about the 33-34 team now and come back later and talk about the 67-68 team. but there's so many similarities between these two teams. George Peterson was the coach, 33-34. Was still teaching chemistry when I was in high school. So he was there for quite a while. But best team, the 33-34 team, had a 22-1 record. That record stood for 50 years in terms of the number of wins. Nobody had more wins in a single season than 22. 67-68 came close, but something happened that last game of the year. We'll talk about that later. Or let's not. You know, basketball, the new high school was built in 1929. Prior to that, they had two high schools, Drum Hill and Oakside. Until this team came along, Peekskill really wasn't that known for its basketball program. They had won a championship in 1921. I think that was the only championship they'd ever won in basketball. Well, this group of fellas come along in 1931, and they get together as freshmen and start playing basketball. And they win the league championship in 1932-33. And then they carry that, and they had four individuals that were juniors that year, and a guy named Crawford, who was a heck of a basketball player. Well, now they go into 33-34. Crawford graduates, and they replace him with a fellow named Lou Amory. Sophomore, 6'4" tall. You know how tall that was for that era? So they had these guys plus Lou Amory, and here's what the Evening Star had to say about these individuals. Wilbur Jewell, offensive scorer supreme, ace marksman. He was the leading scorer on that team. Billy Peeper Dorsey. Now, there was a discussion during the offseason. They knew who the four starters were going to be. They were going to be the three starters. They knew the juniors coming back. Amory took the center position. But this last position was between Peeper, Billy Dorsey, and the other fellow was Duke Hershkowitz, who is now the Hirsch family. They shortened it down to Hirsch. Hirsch is about 6'3", and close to 200 pounds. Billy Dorsey's barely 5'5" tall and doesn't weigh 120 pounds and is going to play a forward position. Well, they give him the nod to start the season because of his quickness. And he goes out and he leads the team to victory, scores the most points in the first game. And the Starr called him Peekskill's Mighty Atom. He was the spark plug of the team. Lou Amory, the newcomer, this is what they first said about him. He plays all over the court, tossing in baskets and breaking up plays with marvelous dexterity. He's the sophomore. Norm Bell, fiery guard, plays with ferocity and dash. Lou Panzanaro. Anybody know that name? Know that? I think that's why they're being inducted. I kind of have a relationship with this guy. For 2 years, this is what this guy Wesley Stillwell writes. For Lou Panzanaro, for 2 years, the best guard in the Hudson River League and one of the greatest natural players to ever grace a local court. Not bad. Now, Duke Hershkowitz couldn't get into the starting lineup and becomes the captain of the Albany State College team and starts there for 4 years. That tells you something about the talent that starting five had. They got together early. They played together. They just fit. They complemented each other so well. And that's what we're trying to teach these guys that play the game today. It's not about an individual. It's about the way you play collectively and how you play together and support your teammates. And I think that's probably the outstanding feature about this team. John Kokosha, quiet, unassuming guard, played football. But again, another top-notch athlete that couldn't break into the starting lineup. And Bud Covert was another member of that team who played basketball, but also, I understand, was a pretty good tennis player. And again, that's another issue, that today most kids only play one sport. But back then, these were multi-sport athletes. They played 3 sports, sometimes 4 or 5 sports. As I said, up until 1932, the basketball league was dominated by North Tarrytown or Ossining. They won it every year. But this 1933-34 powerhouse team of seniors, Jewell, Bell, Dorsey, Donahue, I forgot Vinnie Donahue, another spark plug, small guy, great football player, Herskowitz, Kokoschka, and Covert, they're the ones that started this basketball tradition that we still enjoy even today. John Morrow took it to another level, but it was George Peterson's group, this team here, that put them on that track. They won 2 league championships in a row. Then they come back 2 years later with this undefeated JV team in 34, and they win the sectional title in 1936, which is another story. This team, they go 22-1. When Poughkeepsie comes to Peekskill, they beat Poughkeepsie by 19 points, 34-15. They go up to Poughkeepsie about 3 weeks later. They lose 25-20. Only loss of the year. Now, this is a true story. They're up 1 point in the 4th quarter. Lou Panzanaro fouls out. A few minutes later, Norm Bell fouls out. 2 guards, 2 starting guards both foul out. Coach Peterson gets a little bit upset, voices his displeasure, gets a technical foul. Lou Panzanaro sitting next to him and says to the official, "Give him another one." Official goes, "That's 2. Bell says, "Give him another one." Official says, "That's 3. Almost everybody on the team joined in that refrain. They ended up shooting 7 technical foul shots. They made 5, and they won the game by 5 points. So they finished the season. Now they played a Yonkers team during the regular season, and they beat them pretty handily, 10 or 12 points. For whatever reason, the district decides not to send them to the county championship, to the tournament. Don't let them play. Whether it was money, busing, whatever it was, I just couldn't find that in the paper. My father doesn't remember. But I did find that after the season ended, the athletic director, I think, was Guy Nichols, and he calls Yonkers and he issues a challenge. He said, "Look, I want to play a 3-game tournament. You won the county tournament. We beat you. Let's prove who the better team is." Yonkers turned it down. So they never got a chance to prove that. And later on, I'm going to kind of, with the 67-68 team, kind of get that argument going of who the better team is. This team, did they still have a jump ball after every score back then? All right. Not that year? Jump ball, okay. Because I'm wondering, you know, it was very unusual for anyone to score more than 25 points or so a game back then, because it was, they'd make 14, 15, 16 passes or whatever before they would take a shot. But because of Lou Amory and Panzanaro controlling the backboards, they were out rebounding teams 2-1 and just throwing the ball up the floor to Bell and Dorsey to score. And the transition game really hadn't been that well developed. So I think that's one thing that Peterson did in that 33-34. They played a stifling 2-1-2 zone. They didn't let anybody inside. They made them shoot from the outside. They dominated the boards and they ran. That's kind of a good prescription for good basketball. If you can play good defense, you can control the boards, and you can run, you can be pretty successful. You guys got that? Some of my team is over there listening to this. Yeah. They double their opponent's output for the season. They held 2 teams to 6 points in a game. Their average points for 23 games was 33.8 points a game, which again at that time was a lot. Their opponents averaged 16.1 points per game. They doubled them. They doubled them. I'd say that that's really a pretty successful season, and it probably doesn't tell the whole story because Coach Peterson went on for 26 years and had a pretty successful season, even though his favorite sport was track and field, and he did mostly in that area, but he had some pretty good basketball teams. And I'm just happy that Lou Panzanaro is over here tonight to hear about the team that they have. So, for the Kakoshes who are here, Ellie representing the team, and my dad, we have a couple proclamations and plaques and things for you guys. And I know you're not going to come up here. I'd like you to, but you don't have to. Do you want to add anything to what I said? Do you want to add anything? No? Did I capture it pretty much? All right, thank you, Dad. All right, so with that, that's the 33-34 basketball team. And Ellie, can I give you these for your cousin? We have some things here for you. You got something for my dad over there? Yes, I do. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Now, as you can see, we're in for a long evening. So here's how it, when whoever is presenting, whenever you hear this, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. That means get ready to get off the stage. How many are in favor of that, by the way? There you go. That's what I like. Okay. From the class of 1933, was part of the 33-34 basketball that we just heard about. Mikey Denon is here to make some remarks on behalf of his uncle, right? Starr Denon from the class of 1933. Mikey, from the class of 62.
Well, thank you. Mine won't take as long as Louie's, but I'll try to go through it quick. A lot of the stuff has already been said, but I just want to repeat, and I'm reading all this stuff anyway. An evening like this does not, you know what, as you get older, you don't want to, but you have to. That's a lot better. An evening like this does not happen without a lot of hard work by many people. I would like to start out by thanking Lou and the committee for the time and effort that they put into this evening. I think we already said that. I think everybody appreciates that. I also would like to extend congratulations to the other inductees and a special thanks to my family and relatives and friends that are here. The hardest part of this entire process is talking about the accomplishments of a man whose athletic abilities took place nearly 80 years ago and who I never saw play personally. My uncle was not a man who tooted his own horn or talked openly about his athletic accomplishments. So how did this all start? Well, I was going through some of my father's old papers when I came across an old newspaper article in the Peekskill Evening Starr. It was dated from the late 70s. The editorial was written by Frank Lazar, who I always thought was a tire salesman. But if he wants to talk about sports, I'll read it. In the article, and I quote, "Starr was one of the finest all-around athletes that the local school could boast of in the very early 1930s. My uncle was a four-letter man, which by today's standards is a feat in itself. In football, he immediately won a regular spot in the starting backfield, He was known for his tenacity play and for being one of the toughest players around, despite weighing in at only 130 pounds. He more than held his own against all comers. Under the direction of Vinnie Donahue's quarterbacking and Starr's running and blocking helped Donahue to gridiron glory. Starr and Vinnie were blessed with other great teammates who helped these football glorious. Joe Rossi, Wilbur Jules, Otto Rickey, and Ernie Conklin were valuable members of that team. When football season was over, Starr took his talents to the hardwood. He was there a year before, I believe, that other team that he played. He was blessed to play with a who's who of legendary basketball players for those who appreciate the history of Peekskill basketball. He played with such greats as Lou Panzanaro Sr., Wilbur Jewell, Lou Amory. After that, when spring rolled around and Starr somehow found time to be a key member of both the baseball and track teams. When Brother Devins was looking for baseball candidates, Starr made the team as both a pitcher and shortstop. He was also named captain of the team. His candidacy for the Hall of Fame was strengthened by a no-hit shutout that he threw against a strong Croton team. Starr struck out 11 hitters and only allowed one ball to be hit out of the infield. In Lazar's editorial, again I quote, that it was one of the greatest mound performances in the history of Peekskill at that time. While having success on the diamond, Starr also found time to turn in a solid career in track. He teamed once again with George Bynum, who was a state high jumping champion. Starr specialized in the sprinting events and also shared his track with Ron Crawford, who went on to become a track star at Colgate University. Starr liked horseback riding as a hobby and stated a decisively strong aversion to homework. Lunch period was the thing he liked best about his high school life. After high school ended, Starr continued to be involved in athletes. He played football, basketball, and baseball with the Guardian AA. As a member of the Guardian AA baseball team, he played with or against most of the semi-pros of that day. Starr also served his country in the Navy during World War II, serving in the Pacific. This is a great honor for my family and I to have my Uncle Starr mentioned along with some of the greatest athletes of all time at Peekskill High School. It's a very prestigious honor. I only wish that he could have been here to enjoy this. Thank you again to Lou and the committee for this honor. It is very much appreciated. Did I make the time?
Yeah, this yours? You heard a reference to, obviously, the 1930-233 basketball team, and another reference from Mike, and clearly Peekskill has an extraordinary history in its basketball teams being extremely successful. I just want to introduce to all of you guys and acknowledge to all you guys the ones who will be carrying the torch, or a group of the ones who will be carrying the torch this year. Stand up, guys. These are members of the 2013-14 Peekskill High School varsity basketball team. And they'll be carrying on that great tradition that we have here at PHS, right? There you go. Okay. All right, it's time to induct Dr. Joseph Walsh from the class of 1955, and to introduce the doctor to you is our good friend Don Straub. Don.
Thank you, Vincent. I appreciate that. Okay, folks, settle back now, relax. We're not going to talk basketball. We're talking tennis. Lou, thank you for inviting me to have this opportunity to introduce Joe. Lou and I go back quite a ways. Not as far as Joe and I go back, but he was a little kid down the block many years ago.
Gave me a quarter to climb the flagpole.
Did you ever do that?
I couldn't get up there.
No, I didn't think so. That's why we offered you a quarter. Joe Walsh and I go back quite a ways. I met Joe in kindergarten at Drumhill Elementary School, which was a few years ago now. At the same time, I realized that he lived in the neighborhood. And lo and behold, there were 4 of us, same age, living in the neighborhood. One of them is sitting out at the table down here near Joe, Pat Hayes. It was Pat Hayes, Joe Walsh, Artie Smith, and myself. And we got into more trouble than most people want to know. My mother didn't. We played softball, football. We broke a few windows playing softball. That was just the thing to do. And we also had an opportunity to use a makeshift basketball court in somebody's streetcar garage that we were able to use at times. Joe and his family lived on Hudson Avenue, back in the woods. And we used to tease Joe about that. And Joe's main path coming from his house to the populated area was the wall. And we asked Joe how fast he could do it, but he would never give us an answer. I think there were some snakes that lived in the wall, and Joe didn't like snakes. Joe was first of all, where Joe lived, they had a barn. And when the horses weren't being stabled there, we played in there. And at a later date, we even convinced Joe to set up a barn dance. And by that time, we even recognized that there were girls around. And it made life pretty good. Joe is also a member of the class of '55, and when he was in 9th grade, he went out for football. Now, Joe was he said 4'4", but I think he was a little bit taller than that. He was a skinny little kid. And I think they convinced him that 1 year of JV quarterbacking was going to be his limit. So Joe turned to tennis, and he never turned back. And I just got a copy of a bio on Joe, and he has a lot of details in here. It's in your pamphlet. I don't know if everybody read it or not, but if you didn't, bear with me. Joe Walsh was a varsity tennis player at PHS under Coach Len Buckton. Joe's highlight season was his senior year when he reached the Section 1 New York State public school finals at the Pew Park Tennis Court. Joe lost to Ron Pickett of Scarsdale, but he qualified for the state scholastic championships at West Point. Joe was the first tennis player from Peekskill High School to reach a state tournament. In qualifying for the section championship, Joe won preliminary matches at the Recreation Park in White Plains. His semifinal match was tied at 1 set each when his opponent came up with severe leg cramps. Joe refused to accept the default, and the match was resumed the next day, and Joe emerged as the winner. Joe spearheaded the PHS squad in 1955 for the Hudson River League title with a perfect 5-0 record. These victories were over Ossining High School, which had won the previous 4 titles. Peekskill also ended Ossining's 59 consecutive match victories. For those who weren't sure, we had a very intense relationship with Ossining. At one of the football games, we were ready to play the Star Spangled Banner to get people to stop fighting. Getting back to Joe. During his stellar tennis career, Joe won 17 straight matches and was twice named to the All-County team. He was a regular on the Westchester Junior Davis Cup team from 1956 to 1959. Joe received scholarships Joe received scholarships to play tennis at Springfield College. He was the #1 tennis player at Springfield for 4 years. Joe graduated from Springfield in 1959 and went on to get his master's at the University of Oregon. Joe did some teaching and coaching early in his career at Peekskill Military Academy. Joe coached tennis and basketball for 3 years. During that time, Joe was contacted by the Irish Tennis Association and was asked to come to Ireland to coach tennis. It was there in 1963 that he met President Kennedy and had a brief discussion about tennis with the president. In 1965, Joe entered Cal State at Berkeley to begin a doctoral program. Here, Joe had a good fortune to meet legendary tennis star and coach Chet Murphy. He was asked to coach the JV tennis team under Coach Murphy. The same year, Coach Murphy recognized Joe's talents and recommended him to be the head coaching position at the University of Minnesota. Joe accepted the position and ran a program from 1965 to 1971. During that time, Joe recruited another tennis star, Louis Smolin. In 1971, Joe made a tough decision to leave the tennis program and to rise and fast becoming one of the top programs in the Big Ten Conference. But Joe now completed his doctoral program in motor learning and was offered a position to teach and coach at SUNY Brockport. This institution boasted some of the brightest minds in his field, so Joe moved to Brockport. In 1977, Joe was offered chairmanship at the Minnesota State University. There he continued to teach and focus on his passion for motor learning and sports psychology. After 42 years in the coaching setting, in the college setting, Joe retired in 2007. Joe was a friend of the late tennis professional, the great Arthur Ashe. Joe, if any of this is not correct, you can have the opportunity to correct it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go on any further. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the PHS class of 1955 tennis star and inductee for the Athletic Hall of Fame nominee, and my good friend, Joe Walsh. You got to do more than stand up, my friend. You got to say something. You're welcome. All right, give me my cane now,
Okay,
so you don't use it on me. Thank you.
I'll be very quick and not say too much because I know you want to move on, and it's just been great to come back here. And at the same time, that I was just very fortunate in my life that the Kennedy meeting just happened to be that's when I was in Ireland, the first person to go over to coach for the Irish, and they brought me in there, and they suck in tennis. They weren't too good in tennis. But I've gone to Ireland now 30 years. I go back and forth a lot, and it just so happened that it was one of these things, first time Kennedy went over, actually, at the time. Although his family obviously had a tremendous background with Ireland, and he was coming into to a military barracks place where I was giving some clinics, and that's how I met him. He just happened to walk down, and They were trying to keep it very quiet at the time where he was coming in because Ireland was going to go nuts anyway over him, and that's how we met. We talked very, very quickly, and it was a great moment in my life. But getting away from that, generally speaking, that I've had a great life. I've had I've had some things in my life that I was just fortunate to do it. How I got in tennis, I don't know, to be frank. I thought tennis players were pansy asses. I thought it was the worst thing in the world. It just so happened. And here's something I would say. If you had kids or people like this or people going into tennis, we were together. We were together there. But I lived in Hudson Avenue, way up, and I'd go down. And I think what got me into it, I didn't get chances to play tennis. They had a wall. They had a damn good wall. And we used that wall to play stickball with and things like that. And this countries don't have enough walls. They do not have enough walls. It's one of the worst countries I've ever been in to have walls if kids want to play. And they need more damn walls. And, but that's how I would do it. But I was so afraid at times because we used the wall to play games with and say this was our team and your team and things like that. But I could come down the hill near Pat, where we lived in that area there, and a lot of other buddies would come the other way. And I'd hit balls against the wall. They didn't even know I had a tennis racket. If I saw them coming, I'd throw the racket in the woods because they would say, there's pansy-ass Walsh again. And so that's how I did it. And then I watched it. And there's 4 courts that they had there, right near there. And it was clay courts. And I used to watch this every now and then. And I always thought, Jesus, and these kids were all rich. And I said, they don't look too damn good to me. And there was the Karff brothers, who played a lot of tennis. And a guy gave me a racket. And that's how it all started. But I really never came from a club setting in that. And I have to, at least one thing I have to do is use his name as Harry King. Harry King was one of the best tennis persons in the country. And he was at a very, very rich place down in the area. And at the time, he saw me once. And he said, why don't you come? And I'll help you out. You can come down by the train. And I'd drop in by the train because my father worked in the railroad, and I could get on the train and go up there. And he would take me late in the night. And he would hit balls with me. And outside of that, I don't think I would have been very, very good if it wasn't for Harry's work. So, not to go any further, it's one of these things that I would much rather play baseball and basketball and things like that. But I was like 4'3", for Christ's sakes. Now I have this massive body that I have now. But the point is that, but all my buddies were there. Johnny Poulos and Joe Sheffalo, and always with the Italians, and always go to the Italian. Every time with the Italians, I know they'd always take care of me. I couldn't go home because they gave me so much damn food. But that's where it started. And so I would just simply state that I was very, very fortunate and moved on from there. And Chet Murphy from Berkeley was, I went out to Berkeley, and Berkeley's an amazing time. And I went from there, and that's what happened. And so, you know, I thank you very much. I wish you an Irish blessing, and an Irish blessing would in some way, may the roads rise with you, may the wind be always at your back, and the good Lord take care of you, but not too soon. See you.
There you go.
And there's one here. I don't know if that's his or not.
You might want to get it. Okay, there you go. Let's have a big round of applause for Dr. Joe Walsh, please. Now to make the next presentation is a member of the Peekskill High School Athletic Hall of Fame, John Kisslinger, who will be introducing to you his good friend and our good friend, Tony Franich. John.
right, before I start, I just want to also thank the Hall of Fame committee for keeping this wonderful program alive and well. And I'd also like to congratulate all of this year's inductees. It is now my honor to introduce Tony Franich. Tony excelled in baseball and basketball at Peekskill. In baseball, he was an unbeatable pitcher. He never lost a game. As a junior, he had a 4-0 record for Bob Pease's team that went 13-2-1. As a senior, he had a 7-0 record. One of those wins was a no-hit, no-run game against John Jay, and that helped Tony earn the prestigious Con Ed Award. And that, along with a fastball that sat in the 90s, put Tony on the radar of Major League Baseball. He was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was the last player cut by Pittsburgh's Jacksonville farm team. And I don't know if you remember, but at that time the Pirates were on the verge of being very good. And actually, you know, in 1960, for you Yankee fans, they beat the Yankees in the World Series. In basketball, Tony was a great shooter. He had unlimited range, and he was a great rebounder. And I have a few misplaced teeth here to verify that. Tony was the captain, the most outstanding player, the leading scorer, the leading rebounder on John Morrow's first team. Now, the significance of that team was that it was the beginning of a tradition of winning basketball at Peekskill. And no team since that time has had a losing record, which speaks volumes for Coach Morrow and Coach Panzanero. Tony was also an all-county selection, and he won the Westchester County Foul Shooting Championship held in the county center by making 24 out of 25 free throws. And what I'd like to do is share a little story about how Tony single-handedly improved the free throw shooting on that first Morrow team. We had a fellow on the team named Joel Langberg who was about the same size as Tony. Joel was an inside player, was doing a great job, getting a lot of rebounds, getting to the foul line a lot. Problem was Joel was only making about half of his free throws. Well, John Morrow came up with a quick solution. He said, Tony, anytime Joel is fouled, you go to the line. Let the refs sort it out. Well, after a few games, it became obvious that the refs weren't sorting it out. So Morrow said to Tony, Tony, anytime anyone is fouled, you go to the line. And as a result, our team free throw shooting improved dramatically. After high school, Tony kind of continued to play basketball, and he actually transitioned, I think, from baseball into softball. He became a umpire, which he's still doing today. He also became a prolific hitter. And in 1972, he was the MVP of the Schaefer tournament that was held up in Poughkeepsie. And by winning that tournament, Tony's team qualified for a world tournament, which was being held in Baltimore that year, and it comprised of 64 teams. During that tournament, Tony hit a measly 500, going 9 for 18, to help lead his team to a fourth-place finish. He also won state titles in softball for the over 35 groups in 1979 and 81. On the basketball front, Tony became a certified high school official. Did you ever ref any Peekskill games? Yes, I did. You did? For Morrow?
Did you ever give him a technical?
He tried to get a couple breaks. Tony also played in a number of leagues throughout Westchester, and going through the box scores in his scrapbook, I saw games where he had 28, 35, 43, 44 points. And one can only wonder what those numbers would have been had he played in today's world of the three-point shot. And in closing, I just want to talk about Tony's greatest achievement, And that occurred, like the Four Seasons said, in late December back in '63, when he married Joan Frost. Now, if you do the math, you'll see that next month, Tony and Joan will be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And I just wanted to recognize and congratulate them on that front. And in concluding, I just want to say that Joan, I think Joan was a teacher, taught business at Peekskill for about 15 years, and I think she had a number of the folks that were here. And with that, I want to turn it over to my friend and former teammate, Tony Franich.
Well, friendship starts at Peekskill High School, and it's everlasting at Peekskill High School. John, do you agree with that? Thank you for the kind words. I am honored by this selection to the Athletic Hall of Fame. It was my greatest achievement award that I have ever received. And I will extend my congratulations to the honorees who make us all proud to be Peekskill High alumni. So much work goes into this night, and I want to thank Lou Penizzaro and his hard-working committee God bless you. All right, we'll talk about my sister. Though my sister is no longer with us, but my father passed on when I was 12 years old, and my mother had a nervous breakdown when I was 13. My sister was 10 years older than me, and she took me in and raised me. Kept me in school. And encouraged precipitation in sports for me. So I did. I've been blessed with my wonderful friends, an outstanding son that I have, and my daughter-in-law, Diane, and my wife that is going to get either the Nobel Peace Prize or the Purple Heart next month, December 28th. God bless you all, and thank you. And I'm so proud to see Mr. Penizzaro here, to see everything that his son has accomplished in this state. God bless you.
Tony Franich, ladies and gentlemen. There you go, Joan. He got in the Hall of Fame, but it sounds like you've got a golden pass to heaven, that's for sure. That was great. Thank you, Tony. Peekskill never had a wrestling program until, I believe it was 1963 or 64, right, Dom? 1963. And their first wrestling coach was a guy by the name of Louis Dupas, a Frenchman. Now, how could anybody take a wrestling program serious if they've got a coach named Louis Dupas? Well, they began to take Peekskill's wrestling program serious when Louis Dupois went back to teaching French, and Larry Cook a member of the Peekskill High School Athletic Hall of Fame, took over the wrestling program and made it a tremendous program. And he is here tonight to introduce to you our next inductee, Greg Terrone. Let's hear for Larry Cook.
I, too, would like to thank the Peekskill Hall of Fame Committee. They do a great job. And I also would like to congratulate all the other inductees into the Peekskill Hall of Fame. But tonight I have the honor of introducing the 1972 101-pound Section 1 champion, Greg Terrone. Winning a Section 1 championship is a really big deal. Back in 1972, there were 48 schools that had wrestling teams. And those 48 schools at the end of the year were divided into 4 divisions of about 12 teams each. And Greg won divisions back-to-back. And in 1972, as a junior, he won the Section 1 championship. And that's a really big deal because there are a lot of outstanding wrestlers, Hall of Fame wrestlers, like Billy Testa, great wrestler, didn't win the sections. Danny Yee, great wrestler, Hall of Famer, didn't win the sections. Wendy Smythe, great wrestler, Hall of Famer, didn't win the sections. And probably one of the best wrestlers ever, Gene Clemens, didn't win the section. Greg, you won the sections. That's something really special. When he was then comes his senior year, and he's wrestling in the Hastings Christmas tournament. Big tournament just before Christmas. He's wrestling a kid named Eric Romanino, who is now and has been a Section 1 chairman for wrestling. He's the AD at Beacon High School. But anyway, they were wrestling in the finals, and boom, they crack heads. And Greg comes off the mat all dizzy and doesn't feel very, and he's losing the match. And the referee comes over and says, "Is he all right?" I said, "Can you see 2 fingers?" Greg said, "Yep." So we put him back out there, and he pinned him. And he won the Hastings Christmas tournament. But as the year went on, the concussion took its toll. Now we know a lot about concussions, thanks to the NFL Players Association, who sued the NFL over concussions. So now when you're watching a pro football game, a player gets a concussion, they take it, or they don't know if he has a concussion. He takes a hit to the head, and they take him into the locker room and they give him 15, 20 minutes of tests. What they test is his reaction time, because when you get a concussion, your reaction time is slower. They test your coordination, because when you have a concussion, one of the side effects is your eye-hand coordination is not as good. They test your balance, because your balance isn't as good because of the concussion. They test your focus, because you can't stay focused because of the concussion. So if you don't pass that test, you don't do anything. You sit for 2 weeks, do nothing, no running, nothing like that. It also affects your ability to perform. So you're also in greater danger of being injured because you're about maybe 75% of what you normally could do. But back in 1972, we didn't know that. We just knew that Greg was not wrestling like he was capable of. We sat him out. We thought rest would help, but when you're a wrestler, you can't rest, and you have to run, you have to lift, you have to work out, you have to keep your weight down. So we set him out, but he never really got over those symptoms from that concussion. And he was never able to wrestle as good as he could have. But even with that, he only lost 2 matches. He won the divisionals. But those losses, after you've been a champion and you lose, those losses hurt about 10 times as much as they did before you won that championship, because you're defending your championship. You're a champion. You want to prove to yourself and everybody else that you can do it. But that was a character-building year, definitely. He won the divisions, but not the sections. But dealing with that circumstance, I think, helped build his character. But Greg Terrone, the 1972 101-pound section champion. Come on up, Hall of Famer.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. That's why I'm going to read this now. Had a concussion. No. All right, throw that in there. Thank you. Hey, Vinny, I learned from you. 30 seconds left. 10 seconds ago, just a quarter of a pound. Only 1/8 of a pound over. Typical phrases in wrestling. In reality, very little time and not much weight. But 10 seconds ago, for a wrestler in a match, can feel like an eternity. And a quarter of a pound of weight to lose just prior to a wrestling match can feel like a ton of weight. Anybody who ever wrestled can relate to those phrases. To get over these hurdles, a wrestler needs support and encouragement from their coach. I was fortunate to have Coach Cook. Mr. Cook was the best. Mr. Cook was an outstanding mentor and coach. He motivated me to wrestle hard, be successful, and made wrestling a major sport at Peekskill High School. The Hendrick Hudson duel match in 1972 was a perfect example. This league wrestling match drew more than 1,000 spectators in the old Peekskill High School gym, which was record attendance for that time for any sports event, even basketball. Sorry, Louie, it's true. True story. Sorry, you guys back there, but it's true. Mr. Cook not only motivated me, but an entire team. He brought us to Section 1 championships, like he said, in 72 and 73, my junior and senior years. Thank you, Mr. Cook, for putting wrestling in the record books in Peekskill High School and fostering my wrestling career. I am honored to be inducted to the Peekskill High School Sports Hall of Fame. I would like to congratulate the other nominees, thank Louie and the Hall of Fame committee for this honor, along with my family and friends who are here tonight. Thank you. Good night. That's good. That's it. Hey, my head's killing me.
There you go, buddy. There you go. We got all kinds of things for you. See that? You think he would have kept on wrestling if Louis Dupois was his coach? Oh, Gregory, go out there and wrestle. You have a baguette. You got everything for him? Hold on, buddy. We got more for you. You got everything for him? All right, if there's more, we'll give it to you later. What Mr. Cook What Mr. Cook would not have known, and what Gregory could tell you for sure, is that a concussion was no big deal for him because for years before that, he had his sister Marie always talking into his ears, so it was no big deal. All right, we're moving on up to 1985, the class of 1985, and one of the great swimmers in the history of Peekskill High School, Carol Olsen Lively. To introduce the beautiful Carol to you, please welcome Judy Marks. Judy.
Wow. Thank you, Hall of Fame Committee, Lou Panzanero, for this wonderful evening and the history of Peekskill. And I was going to start my speech talking about history, but we're the new era. Carol and I, we're the new era, okay? The beauty, too. But as I think back, 1968 is the year I arrived in Peekskill. I came from the Midwest. I came from a little town in Wisconsin. Why did I pick Peekskill? This is why. It was the friendliest city I interviewed on the East Coast. It had the worst gym, it had the worst facilities, but it had the best people. Little did I know that year that this little one-year-old would be on my team, and one day her family would adopt me. They are now my Peekskill family, the Olsen family. And that is why I'm so happy to be here to do this and honor Carol for all her accomplishments that she's done in swimming and in life. So now we're going to go back to the history of swimming. 1972, March. Does anybody know what happened? It was a big deal. Title IX was passed. And that's why you see no females before that. There were no teams for them. We had nothing to do when I was in high school. What my niece's children asked me, what sport did you play? I said there weren't any. None. 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 So we start the history in 1973 with the first girls swimming, and they swam on the boys' swim team. Not ideal, you know? We'll admit, their muscles are bigger than ours. They're going to be faster. The next year, Jack Cawthron took over and started a girls' team. Then he left, so then I came in. I left the cheerleaders and went to the swimming. And I started with the Olsen family, and I had the two oldest girls. And then along came the third one. And then along came the fourth one. And then all of a sudden came the last one, Carol. And she started, that was another change, she started in 8th grade. They started changing the rules and letting the modified swim on varsity if they were able to do it. So Carol was one of the first girls to do that. Well, I'm sorry, all the other 4 girls, but I guess they saved the best for last. So Carol started with showing me so much ability. She could swim any and every stroke. And when you can become a good butterflyer, you are gold on that team. You are gold, because it was hard to find good butterflyers. But then she could do the backstroke, and she could do the freestyle. And, well, breaststroke, she could do it. Wasn't her best, not her favorite, but she could do it. I could put her in anything. Well, the history of the team at that time was that the girls swam summer swim team, which was very recreational, and then they swam the season, and that was it. We were against all these other teams that swam year-round. So, Louis, that's why when you started looking at the paper, he said, I couldn't find any articles, and the only one I found, after I saw that, I stopped looking. We lost by a very large number. It was I forgot what you said, but 100, 25 to 35. Okay, so you know what? We build character, and we watched our own times. And I worked with each girl, and they watched, what did I do this week? What did I do this week? We could lose a meet like that, and we could have girls walk out happy and excited. So Carol decided she was going to get better. And with the help of her wonderful mother, she went to West Point, and she swam on the master swim team over there. So she owes her mom a lot of gratitude for all those rides across that bridge and sitting there and waiting for her to go through all of that time. One other story I remember, and Carol was, I think, a 9th grader, and we had divisionals, and of course they're at the end of the season, and they were at Yorktown, and happened to be Halloween, which happens to be her birthday, which means she has to swim on her birthday. And I don't know who it was that came to me, but they said, well, she doesn't have to go, does she? I said, well, of course she has to go. Carol wasn't the one questioning it, was somebody else. I don't know who. I seem to have forgotten who the person was, but I think it was one of the sisters. Okay, so Carol took the 500, which is the long one. She took the record for that. Then she went on and she took the record in the IIT. And then she took the record in the butterfly. So now she held 3 records, but she really held more than that, because at that time, if you remember, we had a pool that was substandard, 20 yards long. Every other pool was 25. So she also had some records that were 160 besides the 200. The girls on the team never complained about our pool. We knew it was substandard. Every other team that came would say something. Our girls just, that's what we've got. I said, you smile and you tell them we're happy we've got a pool. Some of you don't have pools. Every referee that ever reffed our team said they loved coming because we had the best kids. So, not only did she break these records, but she held them, and she held them, and she held them, and she held them, and no one could break them. Kids went over to West Point, they started swimming, they started working year-round, and they still couldn't break Carol's records. 20 years later, in that pool over Administration Building, Carol was there, Sarah Lowe, finally broke the 500. And her biggest cheerleader was Carol. 28 years after breaking her other 2 records, Alana, I'm sorry, Alana, I don't know your last name. Donovan broke Carol's records. She, just a little history, she's a friend of Carol's daughter. And Carol was there to cheer her on, to get those records, and to take a picture with her as she could get her name put up there. So, not only is Peekskill a family, swimming is a family. Proof of that, some of her friends that swam with her came today, came from far away to be with her. She has given back to the community in swimming. She's taught swimming, and she coached for several summers, and then she taught her children to swim, and now her daughter's on the team. So it just goes around and it goes around, and it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Carol built a lot of character, and Carol always had a great sense of humor, and she still does. I guess that's why she married Craig, so she could keep get the name Lively. Okay, that's enough of that. So, without any further ado, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Carol Olsen Lively.
Well, I don't have much to say. She did my speech for me. But I just want to say how honored I am to be recognized by the for my high school swimming career. Who would have thought that the girl who failed swimming lessons when I was 4 years old would be inducted into the Peekskill High School Athletic Hall of Fame. I started to swim on the Peekskill Parks and Rec. That was the big thing to do in the summer, and as you know, I'm the youngest of 6 children, so it was kind of a given that I was going to swim because my parents weren't going to keep me home alone. So when I was 5, I joined, because by then I was bigger and I could swim across the pool. So that's how I spent my summers. In the 8th grade, I was able to join the girls' varsity swim team, and Judy was my swim coach, and my sister Teresa was on the team. And I took swimming very seriously, and I wanted to break the records. So that was my goal. I was able to start then, because of my parents, to swim at the West Point Swim Club all year round. So I think I started after 8th grade. Fortunately, there were other kids from Peekskill, so we would carpool over there. But during the summer months, we would have double practices, and my mom would drive me 6 o'clock in the morning over to West Point. My dad would drive me in the evening. They gave so much of themselves so I could become who I wanted to be. So I really appreciate all that they did for me, and they must have really loved me. And I guess swimming kind of kept me quiet. You know, they couldn't. So I'm very fortunate that they are here with me tonight to celebrate my honor with me. Being a part of the team was such a big part of my high school days. It defined who I was. I played softball, but I wasn't very good. But I wanted to be, I wanted to be active, so I played and had my friends play with me. Swimming is a very strenuous sport, but thanks to my teammates, and I have 2 of them here with me tonight, Patty and Janine, who it really isn't. Swimming's hard. It's really strenuous. 2 hours and you're not talking and you're just swimming. And we would try to socialize. Miss Marks would kind of get a little upset with us, but we were teenagers. But with that, we were able to keep it together, and thanks to them, they made it much more enjoyable. On Friday nights, we would have sleepovers to make Saturday morning practices more bearable. So, do you remember that? Yeah, and then going in the pool, freezing cold on Saturday, and we'd be like, oh, I don't want to go, and we'd sit there and whine, and we'd go in and do our practice. And because of that, let me get back to where I was. With Judy's support, she made us all become better swimmers and better people in and out of the pool. We learned to be a great team under her guidance, and as she said, we didn't have a winning season, but we all felt like winners anyway. And I was going to speak about my records, but since she took care of that, I won't. But so, as she said, though, I will always have a record, because the 160 IM will always be held, because there's no more 20-yard pools. And, but my daughter was part of the first swim team to swim in the new Peekskill Middle School pool, which is beautiful. 25 yards, 6 lanes. And she's not a butterfly or an IMer, but she's a part of the team and I think enjoys it. So my son didn't really take my swimming gene, but, that's okay. He's my little baseball player. So almost done. So I'd like to thank the Peekskill Athletic Hall of Fame Committee, especially Lou Panzanaro, for all their hard work in putting this evening together. And congratulations to the other inductees, and to my family and friends for their support and for being here with me tonight as I accept this honor. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Come on, Carol. I've got some things for you here. Hold on, I've got some things for you.
I believe this is going to be yours. Yeah, here you go. And this, and this.
There you go. It's time now to celebrate the success of the 1967-68 boys basketball team. And to introduce that to you guys, once again, Louis Panzanaro.
You see why we keep him coming back as Masters of Ceremonies? He keeps you going. He keeps it lively. Well, listen, this is it. This is the last one for the evening, and I really enjoyed listening to all of the stories about our inductees tonight. And as I said, it's one of my favorite nights of the year. Congratulations to everyone. This team, 1967-68 basketball team, my mentor, John Morrow, we are also going to have an interview, a video of John's interview talking about and making the statement that this is my greatest team ever.
Guest, a man who I know from many years ago, the head basketball coach at Peekskill High School, Mr. John Morrow. John, it's a pleasure to finally have you on our program.
Glad to see you again, Mike. Under these circumstances, better than when you were playing for Osley.
Well, that was back in the 60s, and basketball has sure changed in 18, 19 years, John. Or has it? Wait a minute. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot over the years. I mean, you know, you can't make a comparison, Mike, with years ago and the game today. The facilities are better, the gyms are better, the coaching's better, the equipment's better, and so to equate a player today with one 20 years ago, it's impossible.
You made a statement. You said everything's better. Are you a better coach than you were in the mid-1960s, John?
Oh, I'm much more mature. I get less technicals than I used to. No, I really feel I've learned a lot each year, and I feel I'm a better coach because I'm more experienced, and I know a lot of the mistakes that I've made in the past and tried to correct them.
How would you rank Todd Scott as far as the finest ball players that you've coached up in there? I remember I played against Bill Brickhouse back in the mid-1960s. How would you rate Todd in there of all the players you had? I know your son played was outstanding.
I've had many, Mike, as you know, terrific ball players at Peekskill. Again, to be consistent with what I said before, it is very hard and very difficult to equate a player of 20 years ago with a player of today. Certainly, with all the terrific players like Carter, Robinson, my son, Pat Thornell, Ed Lane, I could go on and on. I know I'm leaving a lot out. Bill Brickhouse was by far the best all-around player I've ever had. He could play any place. He was a guard, ball handler. He was very unselfish. If we played an easy team, he'd score 11. If we played a team like Ossining, he would get 28, 29.
I know Tony DeMichael has admired your coaching career through the years.
That's true, Mike. John, I have to ask you, as far as this game is concerned, Mike and I mentioned in the early part of our pregame show that both teams pretty much know where they're going to be in the opening rounds of the playoffs. Their seeds are locked up. This is not a league game, and perhaps they may not be pumped up for the game as much, but this is your last, although your first tournament game will most likely be here, this is your last regular season game here for Peekskill. What special feelings does that give for you, even though, as far as leagues and postseason factors, they don't really exist here?
Well, Tony, I'll tell you, I hate to think of it as being my last regular season. You brought it up. I try to put it out.
The guy thinking about it.
I try to put it out of my mind, but I'll tell you one thing. The excitement of this game is as great as ever. An Ossining-Peekskill rivalry in the old days was great. The gym was packed like you see tonight. It's a packed gym, and they're still coming in. The Ossining games, the Ossining-Peekskill games of Mike's day and 15 years ago were terrific.
This team, this year, and it's not my best team. 1967-68 is the best team I feel I've ever had in Peekskill. But this team came the closest to realizing their true potential than any other team I've ever had. I had the most intelligent squad I've ever had before. They were dedicated. They had a tremendous attitude. And I would say in the tournament, they played, with the exception of the Malvern game, they played up to their full potential. They couldn't play any better. I had a chance to go to West Point. I would have liked it at that time because it's the type I was looking for. It's where you had built-in discipline and you had burning desire. And when you say jump, the kids say, how high? You know, they go through the wall for you. And I would have loved that type.
A javelin stood in the middle of a circle and kind of just swung the javelin around, and everyone had to jump over it. And he started to raise the javelin, and if you didn't get up high, that javelin would hit you in the shins, and it would shoot you. And
he said, "This is my greatest team ever." What was that? Now listen, That's debatable. If you were a New Yorker back in the 50s and 60s, they had this great debate. Who's the better center fielder? Mays, Mantle, or Snyder? I was a Brooklyn fan. I thought it was Snyder. We could wage this same debate here, although I got to tell you, until I started coaching and until I did some research and found out about this 33-34 team, I was in that camp. 67-68 was the greatest team I ever saw play. They were, look at these names. Pat Thornell, Billy Thomas, Glenn Robinson, Nate Carter, Bruce Vogt, Wayne Patton, John Brophy, Tommy Buckton, Zach Gillen, Len Robinson, and Glenn Gaskins. I'm telling you something. Can you imagine being a reserve on that team? Well, there was one good thing about that. The first five were so good that you got second team would get a lot of playing time. Only Coach Morrow didn't go much beyond 7 people, so that was another, that was a little side issue. But 21-1 was their final record. They were the first team in the history of Peekskill High School to have an undefeated regular season team. 18-0 regular season. They boasted the first 1,000-point scorer in Pat Thornell, first in the school's history. A record that Glenn Robinson set, 55 points in one game, still stands today. 37 rebounds in one game, Nate Carter, still record stands today. And you had guys like Patton and Vogt running the show along with that kind of talent. And as I said about the 33-34 team, with Thomas and Carter on the boards, nobody got a rebound. They got the ball. Billy didn't even have to run the floor. He just took the ball, threw it up the court, and somebody else was going to score with it. They called Pat the blonde bomber. But, you know, he invented the three-point play before there was a three-point line. He learned to drive to the basket and always draw the foul. He was phenomenal in doing that. You had Billy. Not bad to have as one of your rebounders a guy who's going to become the first-round pick of the Dallas Cowboys. That's pretty tough, wouldn't you say? You know, try to go up against him and get a rebound. And not only that, he was athletic, he could handle the ball, and he could score when he needed to. Pretty good job inside. Nate was just all athletic, all arms and hands, and he could just grab everything that Billy let him get to. Glenn was a phenomenal scorer. He could shoot the basketball, played good. And that was another trademark of John Morrow's teams. They played a fierce man-to-man defense. He said to me, Louis, when you start coaching, he says, just play man-to-man defense, and I'll show you 3 plays, and that's all you need to know. That's the way I've lived. You know, he had a fast break, a sideline break, that you could actually get a shot off and score in less than 3 seconds. And I've seen him do that. I saw them do that against Beacon at the county center. John was a great coach, great mentor, and developed, you know, he was a motivator, a real motivator. I loved when he took the pole vault stick out, and he'd say, you guys will jump higher, and he'd start swinging that pole vault stick, and these guys had to jump, or else they're getting cracked in the thighs, wherever he could hit them. And the stairs. Oh, yeah. They had those nice stairs for you to run down at that old high school, you know. Tommy Buckton, he was my neighbor. His father was a great coach of golf and tennis. And when all the rest of us were out guzzling soda, I can remember Tommy be chugging quarts of milk. And look at the size of the guy. And he was a bounder. He could, you know, he'd get out there on the court, and he was able to go up and make Billy and Nate tougher as he played against them in practice. It made you tougher too, Tom. But it was great. John said I made one mistake in my coaching career. He says, I overestimated the talent of John Brophy. But other than that, And I said, no, John, you made 2 mistakes. You cut me 2 years in a row. But, you know, back to John, they tell me that he was the greatest horse player. He could shoot the lights out as long as nobody was guarding him. But, you know, this team just got better and better as the year went on, and they dominated sectional play. They won by an average of 20-some points a game when they got into the sectionals. As I said, they finished the season as sectional champions. But in that day, they did not have a state tournament. So what they did in Westchester County is they had the open tournament, they called it, and Peekskill was in the second classification. They were an A school. The AA schools had more enrollment. They were above them. And it was Mount Vernon that won the AA. So 2 years in a row, Peekskill had to play Mount Vernon for the Open Championship. And 2 years in a row, they had the lead going into the fourth quarter. In fact, in this particular year, they were leading by 9 points. But I got to tell you, they're not the only team that succumbed to the pressure from Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon has done that to numerous great opponents year after year after year. And unfortunately, these guys lost that last game by 5 points. And it ended their season at 21-1. We won a state championship, which is that other team I'm going to throw out there at you, the Elton Brand team of 94-95. But we lost to Mount Vernon. So if we had to play Mount Vernon to get to the States, we may not have made it. On the other hand, the 33-34 team beat Mount Vernon. So there's the debate for you guys. You had a great team, but tell me who the better team was. You're third. We're third.
How many guys from Mount Vernon teams in the past went on to play in the NBA?
A lot of players from Mount Vernon.
Those guys played against the NBA.
Exactly. All right. Well, Gilbert, good point. That's starting the debate. So, you froze on Mount Vernon. You froze the ball. Oh, 3 pros were on that Mount Vernon team? Billy, come on up here and talk for your team, will you? I'm finished. Get up here. Come on. Huh?
I know about what? Listen, this is...
They had a pro when we played them, too.
Billy Thomas wanted you guys to hear this, something associated with this. What year was it? 67, not 65, 64, 65? Gilbert, you were on that 64, 65 team. That's right. That was a basketball. I can't, this thing ain't working. All right, here's what he wanted. He wanted you guys to hear this. Come on, make your speech. Nobody gives a shit. Billy Thomas speaking on behalf of the 60, what is it? What team? 67 team. Billy Thomas.
You're a jewel.
Okay, my man.
Good evening, everybody. Well, I'm not going to stand up here by myself, so my teammates, please come on up here and join me. Tom Buckton, Bruce Vogt, Zach Gillen, and the man who has his jersey retired in the gym, number 44, John Brophy. They just made a mistake and put Todd Scott's name on that jersey. But we all know that it's Brophy. We'd like to, first of all, just thank the Hall of Fame committee and thank Louis for this great night. This is wonderful, and we're really, really humbled and appreciative of the effort that you put into this, yourself and your staff. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening and for staying till the end. I want to congratulate the other inductees. Peekskill is a wonderful place to grow up. I remember when Larry Cook came to Peekskill High School, and he came into the gym class, and we were all wondering, who's this dude, man, with this little 12-inch waist, man, that walked around and tried to teach us how wrestling. Well, in 1968, when we were graduating and we had this great basketball team, we also had great wrestling teams at that time also. And we also remember when Judy Marks came to Peekskill and joined. Yes, you know, we were around. And we also had great swimming teams during that time also. So, you know, Jack Cothran, Eddie Schmidt, you know, we could just go on and on and on and on. You know, we're proud to be here representing that great class, but there are other athletes and other sportsmen that were tearing it up just as much as we were. And we're very proud to be here representing the class of 1968.
Yes.
I'd just like to take one moment for a couple of moments of silence here. One is for Nate Carter, who can't be here this evening. He's in Katy, Texas right now, as we're here doing this, and he's having surgery to correct some cancerous problems that he has. And that's why he's not here. So if we just have a quick moment of prayer just for Nate to be strong and get better. We love you, Nate. And I'm speaking because our coach is not here and our captain is not here. John Morrow was a great basketball coach. I didn't realize just how great a basketball coach he was until I left Peekskill and went to Boston College and got a chance to watch the Boston Celtics in Red Auerbach, and I'm sitting there saying, we ran that play. We ran that play. That's our out-of-bounds play. That's our fast break. And I understood that he learned from a master too. And he imparted it to us. And we are truly blessed to have had him as our coach in Peekskill for as long as he was. When he came, when he started, and when he left, we won. We won. So thank you, John Morrow. Our other point guard, Wayne Patton, is not with us. Wayne has passed on also, along with Glenn Gaskins. Two great basketball players and two wonderful individuals. One quick story about Wayne, well, it's more about his dad, Walter Corney. During this season when we were 21-1, after the home games, several of us would go down to Wayne's house, you know, because we're getting ready to go over to the canteen and hang out for a little while. But we had to stop by Walter's apartment first so that he could help us keep our minds right. Okay? In terms of, I don't think what you all so happy about. You five should have only played part of the first period and should have sat down. What took you so long? So he always kind of brought us back down to earth and kept us grounded and didn't let us get big-headed about our success and made us think about the team. Speaking about team, I believe most of us up here started playing basketball when we were very, very young over at Drum Hill Junior High School. Okay? Walter Corning, Sid Gonellis, Pat Donahue. Mr. Lou Panzanaro, Sr., okay? This is who taught us the fundamentals of sportsmanship and team play. And our success is grounded in what these individuals gave to us as 6, 7, and 8-year-old, 9-year-old little rugrats running around. Okay? We're very, very proud of that. I'd like to thank our cheerleaders who were great. I know we got a couple of them here. If they could stand, please. Come on. Come on, take a bow. Come on now. Come on. Yeah. Not only did we have a good basketball team, we had the best cheerleaders and the best looking cheerleaders in the county. Yeah, I will. I'd like to take a moment and also have John Morrow's daughters please stand. Patty and Jane, thank you very much. Patty and Pat's son, Danny. This is a great basketball team, and we worked very, very hard. And Louis had some very, 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 very good basketball teams. But Louis needs to understand that he's somewhere like, fourth or fifth. Who? Oh, okay. Because he's not better than his dad's team was. We already had that conversation. We got the first 1,000-point scorer. We got the guy who scored the most points in a single game and is still standing. We got the best rebounder, and that record is still standing. You have some pros playing, right? Absolutely. Okay, yeah. And those records are still standing. And those records are still standing. And those records are still standing. I'd like to well, I think if we got one of them computer games going, I think we would win because we would foul all you guys out. Okay? And before I talk about the person who would foul all you guys out, I'd just like to, Denise Thornell, Suda Thornell, please take a rise. Okay? Pat's sister-in-law. Thank you. Pat Thornell was the greatest basketball player I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of very, very good basketball players. Some people are somewhat unstoppable. Some people make some things happen. Pat Thornell was unstoppable. You could not stop Pat Thornell. As Louis said, Pat invented the three-point play by going to the hole, putting his body on somebody else, getting banged and knocked into the mat that was right here against the wall. You all remember, okay? But before he hit that mat, he put that shot in nice and soft and then went to the free throw line and made his basket, okay? He's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen. And I'm so proud to have been a captain with him and to have played with him. It's just amazing. The toughest competition we had was in practice.
Don't make me box you out.
Seriously.
Don't make me box you out. He was your nemesis.
And this is why Nate and I were such a good rebounder. From all that milk that Tom Buckner was drinking, it made him big and strong. Okay? These gentlemen here made our guards better from the day where they played defense on them in practice. And when we got in games, we had no fear. We had no fear because we knew that there was nobody that was going to be able to take down all of us. So we're very, very proud and very honored to represent Peekskill High School. Just one more quick thing just for you. This is for you, okay? I understand we didn't have a state tournament, okay? But we did go to the state of Vermont, okay? Yeah, they were. We drove on that little raggedy bus, okay, and got off and rocked Pittsfield, okay? And then they took us, because we had to bill it at their houses, and they gave us all these.
Drink.
They made some of them drink. They gave us all these potatoes. The next morning, no, this was before the game. The next morning, as we beat the first team, they wanted to make sure that they won the second game. They gave us all these pancakes, nice that Vermont syrup on it, the big thick Vermont sausages, you know. So, you know, Glenn was just chowing down. Man, this is good. I'm saying, Glenn, slow down, baby. Okay? So after they stuffed us, and we went down, and we dusted off their two best teams in their state to become the state champions of Vermont. We broke it on the way home. Because we knew. Okay. But I just want to thank you for coming. Thank the committee once again for recognizing all the honorees. This is a wonderful tradition, and I sincerely hope that it continues. And what Vinny was supposed to put on here for you was our theme song that we always came out to, Sweet Georgia Brown. Okay? But being, you know, a politician and not technically, we'll cut him some slack. Thank you very much.
Great job. Good job.
Can't you just see all those people in Vermont, seeing all these black guys from Peekskill walking up there? Man.
Hey, I forgot to mention Zach was a master triple jump champion.
Zach was triple jump champion, that's right. New York State, right?
Went out to California to compete. I missed that.
I will do that. Would the Morrow family please come forward? We have something for you guys. Come on.
Yeah, we got more over here. No, did you get this?
Have your son come up, Dan.
Yeah.
Billy don't need that here.
Where's
Thank you. Oh, you're welcome, Bill.
Miss Thornell? You're here. Danielle, is it? Denise. I'm sorry. Denise, come on up here, please.
Billy,
Kid, you know Denise Suter? Huh? You know Denise Suter?
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank everyone for coming this evening.
That's yours. Billy, this is yours.
Please get home safely. And always remember, hail to our colors. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.